Your Hurricane, another track from the new album, Thank You for Today, out now. Do check it out. It really is a complete listen. And right in the front here, Christina. Hey, Christina, she won the Wintrust Best Seat in the House. That's why she's sitting 8 feet from Ben Gibbard. And if you want to win the Wintrust Best Seat in the House, 101WKQX.com. All that. Danielle, first time I saw you guys, probably like some people here, you're on Seth Cohen's starter kit.
Yeah, I do believe we were.
I'm from the OC, the TV show. He was obsessed with Death Cab for Cutie. This was, 2004, 2005, in that pocket. Was there a reluctance to have your music on a television show, especially 15 years ago? Now it's a little more common.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It started with, we just got a request at some point that was like, hey, there's this new show on Fox. They want to use one of your songs in a scene. We're like, yeah, sure. And there was, we kind of needed money, and there was money attached to it. So we're like, sure, of course. Like, yeah, it sounds great. I mean, we weren't opposed to that sort of thing by any stretch of the imagination. So we were excited to get a sync, which is when they use your music and something. Right. And so we just I tuned in like, I wanted to see what this show's all about. And then they were referencing the band on the show. This is one of the first couple episodes. And we were kind of like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. But then it just kind of snowballed, and we almost became a character on the show.
You were a character on the show.
And so I think at the time, we were doing pretty well on our own in the indie circuit, so to speak. So we weren't like unheard of, but it definitely brought us in front of a much larger audience. And I think in hindsight, we're very appreciative for that. I think at the time, it wasn't that we were not appreciative of it, but I think we were a little bit put out that there was an assumption that was made from time to time that the only reason anybody cared about the band was that they were on TV, and obviously that we've kind of settled that.
Well, you have to prove it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a great platform.
Yeah.
And that bait shop was great, for bands like Rooney and Modest Mouse played the bait shop.
Yeah, I think after Modest Mouse did it, we're like, okay, we'll do it.
U2?
If Modest Mouse
U2
does something, I wouldn't say if Modest Mouse does something, we'll do it, because that's maybe a backstage conversation, but in this case, we were like, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. And then just recently, the other night, no spoilers, on The Affair, I watched this show, and the last scene, what Sarah said, your song from was it Codes and Keys? Plans. 2005. That was on, so it's still a process. I mean, it's still your music is still available for TV shows now. How does that work now? Are you selective, or are you just like somebody asks and you give it to them? How does that?
I think we probably get less requests now because we're like an older band. Like, our music's been around a little bit longer. So I think normally I would imagine if you're trying to place music in a TV show or a movie, you want something that's not going to take the viewer out of the experience of watching the show. You want the music to be supplemental but not overpowering. Like, if somebody used U2's With or Without You in a big scene, you'd just be thinking about, oh, that's U2's With or Without You. You might be so I think maybe, as the band's profile has kind of risen and, the music's been around for a while, I think more times than not, we don't get asked as much for that kind of stuff. But, if it's sounds like a cool thing, we'll usually do it,
And watching this show, it really fits. Again, no spoilers. We're going to binge watch 4 seasons of The Affair on Showtime, but Death Cab song there. And when fans come up to you who've been listening to your music for 15 years, maybe at a point when they were 15, 16, impressionable, when music really makes an impression, how do you respond to some of those comments or even feedback you get, like, oh, when I was 15, the Plans record was so important to me?
Oh, I love it. I've approached people that I admired at that age with similar kind of things. It's like. And I think the music that you kind of connect with at that point in your life, when you're a teenager and you're trying to kind of define your identity, and music, and I think certainly at younger ages, I think because you're a less experienced human being, you identify yourself, you create more of yourself in the things you like than necessarily the things you've done, because you're a young person, you haven't done a lot of stuff yet. And so those records for me that were really important at that age are still really important to me, because they were such a part of me forming an identity at a young age. And young people are doing that right now with whatever they're listening to. So it's an honor to be a part of somebody's life story like that. I mean, I feel that The Cure is that for me, or like Superchunk or Low or bands like that. I mean, bands that really meant a lot to me at a young age.
Have you had a chance to tell Robert Smith that, how much you love Disintegration?
Yeah, I haven't. I think if we played his. He has a festival in the UK called the Meltdown Fest.
Yeah, he curated it this year.
It's not his festival, but he curated this year, and he asked us to play. And so I was emailing with him a little bit, and I did tell him how much it meant to us to be doing it, but I didn't vomit up all of that stuff over email. I figured if there's an opportunity to like meet. Unfortunately, he had a family thing, was unable to make it to any of the shows that week, but. I think if if we ever had a late evening of hanging out and I was able to like really break it down, I'd probably tell him that. But that record does mean that much to me.